Hey, hello everyone. So welcome to this webinar. We are talking about how to maximize your work week today, and it's all about habits. Me talking here, I'm Johan Nilsson. I'm the CEO and one of the founders behind Start Deliver. You will get this recording, you will get the presentation, and we will hand out all that material to you after the webinar. It's also being recorded, so you can watch it if you want, or share it internally with some other people. During the webinar, you can post questions. This is a live webinar, so I will take those in the end, and we'll keep this to roughly 30 minutes. And you can, of course, always reach out to me. You have some of my contact details here. Please do that if you have any questions at all. Start Deliver, we make a customer success platform, purpose-built for customer success. And we also have an Impact Academy, which is all about customer success training. So this is what we do. We have two legs in this business. What we also have recently is that we released a podcast. So if you haven't seen that already, please check it out. We do that together with our partner, Lincoln Murphy, who is also partner with us in Impact Academy. So every week we'll cover a topic that is specific to customer success. And you can also, if you have any specific questions, you can post them to us and we'll cover them during the time with this podcast. So keep that in mind, check it out. It's roughly 20 to 30 minutes, so you can listen in on your way to work or at lunch or whenever you have some spare time, basically. Today we're talking about how to maximize your work week. And this topic is very close to my heart because I believe what we do every day, every week is what really matters, especially in customer success. And I mean, there's a lot of talk about strategies and visions and so on, but when we get down to it, it's all about what we do regularly with the customers that really is what makes the difference. So this topic, I believe, is really important. And what I also know is that there is sometimes things that you know in this respect, what you should be doing. There's also what you do, but those things can be very different from what really works. And that's the topic here today. We want to share with you what we know works, so you can start doing more of that and less of the other things, basically. But if we take one step back, and I think in customer success, sometimes we are quite frustrated. We want to do a lot, but things hold us back. So we have things that are stopping us from achieving what we want to achieve. And I want to talk a little bit about that before we get into some key habits. So looking at things holding us back, there are things that are general, and there are things that are specific to customer success, I would say. So in general, one thing that I know a lot of people struggle with within productivity in general is that we are inbox junkies. We have been taught to look at our inbox and check it regularly. And as soon as a new mail comes in, we jump on that and we try to, whatever it can be, read into that. And I think this inbox junkie steals a lot of time from a lot of people, and customer success is no exception at all there. So inbox junkie is a trap. And I don't know if you probably heard about this, but there is a lot of studies around how often you should look into your inbox. My advice, my rule of thumb is that you should not do it more than 3 times a day. So in the morning when you come in, around lunchtime, and the end of the day, that will save a lot of time for a lot of people. So inbox junkie steals a lot of productivity from us. Another thing is all these urgent things that comes our way. It can be from a customer, it can be from someone internally. And a lot of times these urgent things are not really urgent, but we get them to us and we get thrown out and we start acting on that urgent thing coming at us. So that's another thing that takes a lot of productivity away. We'll come back to that and how to deal with that and later on in the webinar. Another third thing that's also a little bit general, it's that someone else dictates our calendar. I think this is also very common. And this can be as easily as we have a shared calendar. We have a shared link with customers internally, and people starts putting meetings into our calendar that we haven't decided to take. This can, of course, be the regular weekly staff meetings. It can be all these internal meetings that you have. Of course, a lot of time you can probably rationalize and take away a few of those. But it can also be things that you just invited to. There's a product update. There is this and that workshop. So this is also a very common issue where a lot of time we lose a lot of time basically by other people setting time in our calendar and basically removing time from our control. Getting into more customer success specific, sometimes, I mean, our job is to make the customer successful, but a lot of time customer success people, managers are also requested in other areas. And this is also some leakage, a big productivity leakage. You can be asked to do a guide, write up a guide. You can be asked to do a training, and maybe you should be doing a training. But you can also be asked to do a lot of things that are not really in your job description. And this is also something to keep in mind, that every time you accept something that's not about helping your customers becoming successful with your product, we are also stealing time from that work, basically. So this is very common, and a lot of times customer success or the help from customer success is very much wanted because we have a lot of knowledge, we are very close to the customers, so our help is valued, which is really good, but we also need to keep in mind that we can't spend time on everything. We need to prioritize here as well. Another thing that steals a lot of our time is that we chase customers. They don't respond to us. We can't get a hold of them, and they basically ghost us. So we'll get back to that as well during this webinar, but that's also, of course, taking a lot of time from us when we don't get a hold of the customer, because then we don't make any progress, basically. Last, but not the only thing, I think we can come up with a lot more here, but another thing is that we have a lot of meetings with customers and the customer is not prepared. So we lose a lot of time, basically where the customer is not prepared, they haven't done their work, and we basically did not achieve anything with this specific call or meeting. So these are some of the leakage points within productivity for us in customer success. So keep those in mind. And when we have a lot of leakage, when we don't achieve what we want to achieve, things start to spin. Some people call it a whirlwind. Basically, when you come out of a week and haven't really been able to do anything that you had on your list, that's when you know you have a lot of leakage and you have a lot of these issues, I would say. And it's very common. And that's the main point of this webinar, is to address this and see how do the best in the business work and where can we all improve here. Because I would say in general, this area is something that you're never done with. You can always improve. And that's also one of the main things with this webinar, is to give you some insights, some practical advice that where you can find help where you are. So where can we improve? Is it about time management? Is it about having objective confidence when we go into a call, when we go into a meeting? Is it about positioning? Are we positioned the right way in the mind of the customer when we go into a meeting? Or is it all of the above? And usually all of these play into each other. And we will cover these during this webinar, and we will cover this through 3 main habits that we see really effective customer success manager have. So with that, let's jump into the first habit. The first weekly habit that we see really efficient, productive customer success managers have is that they have a growth mindset. They begin with the end in mind. And I will get to what that means, but basically with end in mind, we have the bigger picture here. And the bigger picture is both what our company wants to achieve. We are customer success, but we are also part of a business that wants to achieve something, that wants to typically grow. And we have a key influence on that. And here we need to be aligned with what the top management, what leadership, what they want to achieve. Is it that we want to lower churn? Is it that we want to increase our expansion? Is it do we want to have more advocates? Or maybe we need a mix of these, but we need to we have our mind on this, and net revenue retention being, of course, the main KPI for most customer success organizations and SaaS businesses in general. So, what is keeping the end, beginning with the end in mind? What is, from a company perspective, most important for us? But also, what, from a customer success point of view, what is the customer wants to achieve? What's customer success, as most of you already know, it's when the customer achieves their desired outcome through the relationship with us. So that's the high level thing we want our customer, what the customer have in mind. But we also need to understand that all the customers here, they have goals, and our job, basically, our role here is to help them achieve those goals. And a goal is a time frame and an objective. So this is all, again, a little bit high level, but we need to keep that in mind. And that was a growth mindset. We need to look at these things, because when we achieve these things, the company grows and the customers become more successful with us. And a growth mindset versus like a more maintenance mindset. I think sometimes I see some customer success managers that are not in the growth mindset. They see things more from a maintenance mindset. Keep status quo, renew all the customers, don't rock the boat. So if you feel that you are in that side, we will come back to some steps you can take to become more of a growth mindset. And a growth mindset is really key to enable the right discussions and dialogues with your customers. So it's an important foundation for everything you need to do later. And a growth mindset, with a growth mindset, you prioritize right. You prioritize what your company wants to achieve, and you prioritize the right things for your customer. So this is, of course, easy said, harder to do. But we have a template for working to work with the growth mindset as a customer success manager. In this webinar, we won't be able to cover everything, but we have in Impact Academy, we have a program where we have 5 core elements of a customer success manager. And one of these things I just wanted to highlight here is the objective confidence part. And this is basically objective confidence is when it's not about who you are. It's more about knowing when you go into a call, when you meet the customer, you have an understanding of what they want to achieve. You have an understanding of how your role and your product fits into that. It's a lot more around this, of course, but I think objective confidence, if you're not in a growth mindset, it's usually that you're lacking one of these tools to be really objectively confident when you go into a customer meeting. So that was habit number 1. We will move into the next habit. This habit is about owning your calendar. And here we need to get our priorities right. And I think this is especially important in customer success. I think this is a great quote that's spot on how things are when you're in customer success. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. So I think it's a great quote to think about how do my week look like. And I think this is one of the hardest things in customer success is to prioritize. And just to share a few things why it's hard. And I mean, usually, whether you have 50 customers, 100 customers, 200 customers in your portfolio, in your book of business, at any time, you can do something for any of these customers. So what the meaning of that is, of course, that there's a lot more to do than you have time. That's the ground rule here. So taking that into account, that's where we are. But then you also have these things which are routine, the check-ins, the business reviews, and you have these urgent things you need to take care of. There can be a lot of urgent things that are unnecessary or not really urgent, but there can also be really urgent things that you need to act on. You have inbound, even if we want to be proactive and outbound, we will have inbound. Customers will respond to us, will contact to us. You have scheduled and you have the ad hoc things. So you plan for some things, but you also need to have space for ad hoc things. And you also have these critical things that needs action right now. Maybe it's the one of your larger accounts that we have a big issue with right now. It's highly critical. You need to act on it. And you have high and low priority. And then you have the business perspective of things. You have contract lengths, you have ARR, you have potential. So there's a lot of things going into the prioritization that makes it hard, basically. And back to the first point here, there's always going to be more things we want to do than we have time. So we need to face that, basically. So how do we prioritize? How do we move forward in this situation? And here we need to be a real eye opener, if you haven't done this already, is to look at what capacity do I really have in a week. So get your weekly capacity right. That's the starting point here. And how do I do that? Well, one really good exercise is, of course, to just see where do I spend my time. How does a week look like? Where do I look 1-2 weeks back and see how many meetings, where do I spend my time, how much time on onboarding, how much time on business reviews, how much time on inbound, outbound, critical, high or lower priority things. So look at what you spend your time on, and then you should classify things. This is also something we can go a lot more into depth. We do that in our Impact Academy, but I think this is something you can start with quite easily as well. Just look at what type of meetings and calls do you have. What type of classification can you use on those? And the next part is to look at how much time is required here. Because this is our experience here is that we completely underestimate how much time it actually takes to do some of these activities, and that's why we end up not achieving everything we wanted during a week, and the time just goes away, and we end up in this spinning wheel. And so capacity planning, it's about identifying what things, first of all, what am I spending time on, but what should I be spending time on is the more important thing here, of course. The next part here is to look at your schedule. When you have your capacity, then you know how much time you have to work with. And a really good way to become efficient and to own your calendar is, of course, to block things in your schedule so you don't, so you really get to do these things that you need to do. And just take a call, a business review, just look at how much time it is to prepare, to have the actual meeting, to have a proper follow-up, and to set the next steps. It's usually a lot more time than you when you think about it. So, and you need to make room for that in your calendar. You need to also have room between meetings to enable these follow-ups and so on. So there's a lot of things that you can, by fixing your schedule, you can sort out a lot of these productivity issues, basically. So when you have the weekly schedule, the next thing is, of course, that you need to manage your to-dos because you will have a lot of to-dos. And to do that, you have to have a good system. You need to capture everything in an inbox. Then you need to prioritize and deprioritize as well. And you need to, of course, make sure that you follow up on the things that are on your table. A few tips and tricks around managing your to-dos. A good counterintuitive thing here is to create a to-not-do list. And what we mean here by a to-not-do list is list things that you should not be doing. And that can be things that actually should be on someone else. It can be support is a quite common thing, but it can also be other things that you do if you do things more than once, maybe you can make an async message around that. Maybe you can do a manual or guide or a recording or whatever. So do take a little bit inventory on things that you think that you should not be doing, and put that on a list, and that will help you prioritize as you go. Another thing I recommend here is to audit some of the meetings you have. Usually in an onboarding process, there's a few meetings that you can just remove because they are not efficient. That's my experience, that you and they are usually just there to move the customer, and you can put that into async options as well. Async being basically recordings. Loom is a popular tool for that, but you can use a lot of other tools as well, just to prepare the customer for a meeting. Last but not least, messaging. We see messaging becoming more and more important. So messaging used to be supportive in your work, but sometimes it's even more where most of the work is actually being done. So messaging and how to engage customers in your messaging, that's really critical. There's a lot to it, of course, but and actually we will get back to you on that, because we're going to do a lot more content around how to do great messaging. So that was habit number 2. Moving into the last habit, not the last, but the last we will cover in this webinar, is the weekly habit number 3. And here it's all about owning your outcomes. And here you need to make sure that you move the leading measures forward. And I'll get back to what we mean exactly here. But basically, if you have problem with the customer not responding, we mentioned ghosting, customers ghosting you, it's basically because we are not the priority to them. And or we mean more work for them, or there's things have changed on their side. They have changed what they want to achieve. They have changed stakeholders. They have changed organization. They have changed what their goal is, basically. So, and this is common. I would say this happens to most customer success managers. How to move forward here is that we need to realize that progress comes step by step. I think a lot of times customer success managers are busy being busy. We run around, we send a lot of mails, we do calls, but we have to sometimes do less with fewer customers. And I will get back to you what we mean here. I think a common situation is that you have an at-risk customer. And when you think about it, how can we move a risk customer around? It's actually a few steps that need to happen. In general, this is an example now. First of all, we need to have a good context here. Why is this at risk, this customer? How is what's the contract situation here? How much ARR is it? When is it up for renewal? How long have they been a customer of ours? How is the usage situation? How have they adopted our platform, partly, fully, or none? What is the experience here? Are they happy with us? Do we have a lot of? Have we received any feedback? What is the support situation? How have they issued a lot of support tickets and so on? And who are the people? Who are the stakeholders, the users, and so on? So we have to have the context first of all. Then we need to understand, okay, we have a symptom here. We have them as at risk here. Maybe it's because they have low usage, for instance, or they have not started using the platform fully. But that's just a symptom. What is the root cause here? We need to understand that, of course. And that can be many reasons. It can be that they recently changed key stakeholder. they haven't done part of the onboarding is not completed. We have not connected some data sources that was mandated or needed for them to start using the platform. It can be a lot of things that are the actual root cause here. And to move the needle here, step 3 is basically we need to understand why, if they're at risk now and we need to turn them around, what's in it for them to start using our tool and to really adopt it more. So that's a really important one. We can talk a lot more on that, but that's an important step. Number 4 here is we need to also understand that they are not using our platform right now. We need to change them. We need to change their behavior. And to do that, we need to have influence on them. And this is sometimes really, people miss this a lot of times. We just call on them. We want them to fix something on their side, but we miss number 3 here and number 4. What's in it for them and how can we influence them to make the change? And then step 5, of course, to actually have the meeting, have the call, to launch the restart project, and then they will hopefully get into a re-adoption phase, and then the turnaround has been completed. So there's a lot of steps here on our way to doing the turnaround. And I think especially step 3 and 4 is overlooked. And sometimes we just call them or send them emails, can you please, why haven't you done this? Or we jump some of these key steps to really make a difference. Another scenario is an expansion case. And this is also a step-by-step process to get them where we want to get them. And it's also here, it starts, of course, always starts with context. Where is this customer coming from? How long have they been with us? What's the potential? How much ARR? What products do they have? How is usage? How is experience? Who are we working with here? What's the relationship? But we need to understand what was their goal. Why did they buy in the first place? And what is the next goal here? And this is something also very often overlooked or missed in the process. We want to upgrade them, but we miss what is the next step here? What's their next goal? And maybe have you ever had a call where you had a great idea, but you got a lot of objections? That's a very common situation as well. And also sometimes very often overlooked. We need to identify what can the objections be here to set the new goal and to move things forward. And the 4th one here is, of course, we need to look at relationship. Who are the key people on this customer, and what is our position here? Are we seen as the onboarding expert that got them going in the beginning? Are we seen as the glorified support that helps them with imports and so on? Or are we seen as a business advisor that can help them achieve business goals? Also really key to make a difference here. And again, we need to look at how can we make them, how do we have influence on them? And then, of course, we have the calls, the meetings we set up, and we can usually together with the customer identify and discover a next goal, agree on milestones. And usually we need also to orchestrate that when they hit these milestones, there is an upgrade or an expansion opportunity. So several steps getting into an expansion as well, and goal discovery being a key part of it. Another part of this habit is also to look at what the customer is doing, because our outcomes or my customers' outcomes are my outcomes. And I think this is also something that's a lot of time is spent here chasing customers, and we need to work with joint accountability. So we need to make sure, we need to be affirmative with the customer, and so they need to keep deadlines, they need to keep commitments. And if they don't do that, we need to push back. We need to ask them to be prepared going into a call. We need to ask them to be prepared when we have done and need to have done their part when we have a follow-up call and so on. And if they haven't done it yet, then we shouldn't have the call. So it's a lot about communication here, and collaboration is a key thing to get this working. Last but not least, when we on a weekly basis move things forward, and if we have the priorities right, I think it's a really important part also in this habit of owning your outcome is to have weekly wins. So if you have these step-by-step process, each time you achieve a new step, each time you move a customer forward, that means progress, and that's also a win. And I think it's really important part in having in getting this habit going is to celebrate these wins. It can be in the team, it can be but you yourself finding that I achieved this part. I had this plan with the customer. I moved this. We set the appointment. I set the call. Whatever it is, it's a key part in this habit. All right. So that was the last habit that makes the big difference. Just to summarize, we'll have a few questions to cover as well. In summary, so number one, have a growth mindset. My company's priorities, I need to understand them. I need to be on top of them. My customers' priorities, my customers' goals, I need to understand them. I need to know how to discover them. And to do that, I need to have objective confidence as a customer success manager. Own your calendar. Key thing, capacity planning, weekly blocks, protect your time. Own your outcomes. We need to act on leading measures. We need to understand it's a step-by-step process, and we need to look at celebrating weekly wins because that will keep the momentum for us. So with that, thank you, and I'll cover some questions here. One question here is, what's in it for them? Is that something that should be reiterated by us towards them? I think that's a great question, and definitely we should, in our goal discovery process, we should have an idea of what they want to achieve business-wise. We should connect our product to their business goals, and we should have an idea of that. But going into a call or meeting, we need to discover it with them, so they take ownership of this, and that makes it what's in it for them. What is some examples of influence triggers? That's a great question. So influence, I recommend everyone if you're not familiar to influence, to check out Cialdini. We'll share a link to that. But basically, there's 6 different ways to influence people. And it's like a simple one is reciprocity, where you basically give something for free. And this is human psychology. So if you help a customer, for instance, say that you don't charge anything, but you help them with something significant, they will feel that they owe you something back. And that's a great way, or one way to create. If you have a bad relationship, or it's a non-existent relationship with a customer, it's a great way to start, because that will you help them, and they will see that you are someone that they can rely on, and that's a great way to start. But there's many more here, and actually this is also something we cover in depth in our Impact Academy, how to work with influence in the right way. It's all about human psychology, basically, and that's what's needed usually to get people moving. Great. So just to follow up on that, remind everyone, we have some programs coming up for Impact Academy. We have a Customer Success Manager program starting January 16th. We have 2 open seats for that one. And then we have a Head of Customer Success Leadership program starting January 23rd. And there's 4 seats open to that. So if you want to join these programs, take the opportunity and sign up. They are virtual but live. You work with your customers, you work in groups and workshops, and you interact with other peers, basically. So that's a great way to move things forward. So check those out. Thanks everyone for joining, and you'll get all the material, and see you all soon.